So the thinking system is basically how you think about the game during the opening, the middle game, and the end game. And I'm going to be showing you guys how I do that versus an opponent who is 23-21. Now, I'm playing the French defense. This is now I'm going to be playing the winner or variation of the French, which could be it could get very, very tricky. Now, the opponent plays e5. What I'm trying to do, though, is I'm trying to ensure that I develop all my minor pieces as quickly as possible. So even though I'm playing theoretical chess, everything that I do still has to follow some opening principles. For example, pawn c5 attacks the center. He plays a3. I'm not going to pull the bishop back. So even though bishops are better than knight, I'm going to take so that way I don't lose time in the opening. And then after pawn takes e3, I'm going to play the move knight e7. Why knight e7? Because we're trying to develop all our minor pieces as quickly as possible. Okay, knight to h3. I think he wants to go knight f4, queen g4, which is kind of a new idea. I've never really seen that before. But I'm just going to continue with my regular development protocol, bishop d7. I usually put the bishop on a4, target c2. If they play a4, there's always queen to a5, followed by bishop takes. Now, knight to f4 was played, and I need to be on the lookout for this queen g4 move. And I also think he wants to play knight to h5, which is interesting. Um, so let's say bishop here. If the knight goes to h5, yeah, I'm probably just gonna play rook to g8, to be honest. Yeah, let's do that. Let's go bishop to a4. Now, it's also important that you guys know some important opening principles, what to do and what not to do in the opening. For example, moving the same pieces more than once in the opening stage is usually against opening principles. Putting the knight on the edge of the board is also usually against opening principles. Now, whenever you have a position that has a closed nature, which means there's like some traffic in the center of the board, then it doesn't really matter too much if you move the same piece more than once. So knight h5, I'm actually thinking of queen a5. I don't want to have my queen too far. If knight f5, there's g4. And anytime I play g6, the knight comes to f6. So to continue with the plan, I'm going to go oh, rook to g8. Yeah, let's go rook to g8. And if bishop to d3, then I go knight to g6. It's actually crazy, this line, though. I'm not going to lie. This is a very nice line. I mean, bishop to d3, knight f5, pawn g4. So he's not attacking h7. Knight f5 tries to defend. Pawn g4 hits the knight. Pawn c4 hits the bishop. That's one way to play, but that's kind of weird. Let's go knight g6. So the rook guards g7. The knight ensure that h7 is safe. And the plan is still development. So I still need to ensure that I figure out how am I going to get this knight off the back rank and what's the plan with my king, because I'm not going to be able to castle on the king side anymore. So I have to either think about maybe I'm going to castle on the queen side. So if my plan is to castle on the queen side, maybe I need to play c4 to close the queen side first, then I castle over there. One thing that I want you guys to keep in mind is this thing where we talk about like pieces in our half of the board or pieces in the opponent's half of the board. Now, the opponent decided to castle, which is decent. I like the idea of queen h4, but to me, it just doesn't do much. So now I'm thinking of just playing c4 to hit the bishop. If the bishop goes back to e2, then it's not really doing much. But if he takes, I takes, also not doing much. So I like c4. And why c4 again? Is I'm probably going to castle on the queen side. So bishop back, usually they want to play f4 followed by f5 because the pawn break is important. And knowing this, I'm thinking of knight c6 to e7. Yeah, let's do that. Let's go knight to c6. Plus, I'm also trying to ensure that I develop all my pieces. So I'm going to find somewhere to put my queen. Like, I really like the h4 square for the queen, but that's just not the square for the queen. I mean, pawn to g3 just attacks it. If queen h3, bishop g4 traps it. So pawn to f4 was played. Pawn to f5, I'm assuming is coming. So, I mean, if knight e7, there's also pawn to g4. There's also knight h4. I like knight h4 because this knight doesn't belong on g6. And my h pawn is no guarded. So let's go knight to h4 just to keep it there. Eventually, I'm going to pull it back to f5. Maybe this knight goes to e7. I'm not trying to get my knight trapped though, but I'm definitely going to play something like queen e7. So all my pieces wants the e7 square. So I need to be very careful. Maybe queen d7 and castle is an idea. But this is going to be it's going to be one of those games where the pawn breaks are going to decide. Because remember, we talk about planning. And in order for you to come up with a successful plan, you have to see where the pawn breaks are. So my only pawn break is f6, maybe g5. White's pawn break is f5. I'm definitely never going to be playing b4 because I'm planning on castling my king on the queen side. So I need to think about what white is going to play here. It's not going to be f5. If g3, knight back g4, yeah, that's the critical line. I think he needs to play g3, knight back g4, knight back f5. Slightly weakens his king. So that's also something I'm keeping in mind because you don't really want to be pushing pawns on the side that your king is on. So if he wants to make progress, he has to push the pawns in front of his king. So if I'm able to like get my king on the queen side and then use the fact that he weakened his king, then that could be a way how I try to win this game. So g3 was played. Um, let's put the knight on f5 now. g4 was played, and now we go back to h4. So again, I don't think I'll ever be able to play g6 and neutralize this knight because knight f6 is too strong. Unless I castle the king first, and I just don't know when. But let's see. f5. Okay, was expecting f5. Takes, and then this is safe. So why not just play? Oh, yeah, I don't want to get my knight trapped as well. So let's take. I think my knight is a bit misplaced, which is kind of weird. And the issue is anytime I move my g pawn, there's knight f6. Okay, what if I try knight e7? If knight e7, there's bishop g5. Okay, pawn to f6. Oh, okay. No, I don't like my position anymore. Okay, let's try queen to e7. I'm going to see if I can just quickly get the king out the center and then start some attack. What he needs to do, though, is just move his king off the same line as my rook and then play f6. And that could give him an advantage. But if I could get my king out the center and not lose my knight, I should be fine. I think his plan should be to win my knight, actually. But f6 now will just not work because I take and it comes with check. If he plays king h1 and I castle and he play f6, once I take, he's going to take with something, but my knight is not going to be trapped. So the whole idea of everything is I'm not trying to trap my knight and I'm trying to get an attack on his king based on the fact that he pushed the pawns on the side that his king is on. His plan is to win my knight, maybe win my rook. My pawn here is unprotected, but once I castle, my rook is going to guard it, so I'm fine there. So bishop to f4 was played. Why, why is that not a free pawn, though? Like, life is hard. Guy just gave me a pawn. Have to take it. Problem is, if I take this pawn, there's bishop g4. Knight h6 hits the bishop, but then bishop h3, and I can't castle. I cannot afford not being able to castle here. So maybe I should castle first, and then he plays bishop g4. And that's when I try to play f6. It's weird. Let's castle. Let me just castle first. So we both have 5 minutes on the clock. It's a good amount of time. No one have any clock advantage. Bishop g4 is a bit dangerous because it's on the same line as my king. But I'm going to play king b8, putting my king on the same line as his bishop. And then if he pushes with check, I go king a8. And if he takes, I take, and I should be safe there. That's crazy, though. I didn't see all of that. So that's just so bishop back to g3 was played. So he's basically saying, okay, bro, I'm attacking your knight. The knight can't move. Pawn to g6, knight to f6, knight to f5, knight g8, rook g8. That's a plan. Definitely a plan. He's threatening to push. Wait, takes, rook takes, hit the rook, and then takes, rook takes, hit the rook. If he hits my rook, I take his rook. Let's try that. A little tactical idea because the knight is on h5. So after rook takes, I play g6, and that's going to be a fork. If he moves the knight to hit my rook, I just take his rook and take the knight. If he moves the rook, I take the knight, and he's going to take back the pawn. But I didn't get my knight trapped. That's one. Two, if I could get my king to a8, my king is going to be safe. The only downside is my h7 and my f7 pawns are going to be weaknesses. So I'm going to have to try to do some attack. Because usually if you're attacking, then the weaknesses doesn't matter. Bishop to g4. Okay, let's go g6. Was something I was expecting. But I still would have played g6. The fact that my rook is on the same line as his king is just good. It's just good. But he's ahead by 2 points. There's no way to attack my queen. Anywhere the rook moves, I take. I think he just needs to pull the rook back, take on h5, and then f7 is going to be under attack. So I need to prepare for that. What do I do then? Okay, rook f6 also does it. Does the exact same thing. So I have to takes, bishop takes, and f7 is under attack. We're gonna play queen, rook to g7. Very nice defensive move because I keep the rook active and it keeps this guarded. Rook to g8 also threatens some sacrifice, which will never happen. But king to 8, I want to play king to b8. It's going to be on the same line as the bishop, so I have to quickly play king a8. And then my king is going to be out of all the checks. And then it's not going to be as weird. But for now, anybody could make like a huge mistake. So queen c1. Oh, queen h6 is coming. Queen h6. Queen h6, there's rook g8 though. So king b8, check, king a8, rook takes. After rook takes, all right, let's do this first. Let's do this first. Because the whole idea, okay, if I could go knight d8 is also a defensive move. Knight d8 to e6 is actually a very cool idea. I have a lot of ideas here. I just need to not blunder. My d pawn is unprotected. He moves his king out the way. Let's try knight d8. Knight d8, which leaves the b4 square unprotected. The good thing is, if he tries to win the pawn, it's just not possible. If he takes with the queen, bishop c6 is a pin. Maybe he could take with the bishop. That's the only possibility. So bishop back to c or f3. But then I could try bishop back to c6, which I don't want to do, you know? So rook goes to b8, targets this. Okay, queen to d7 I like. Queen to d7 comes with an immediate trick. So let's try that. The whole idea of queen to d7 is to get some entry into his half of the board. So I'm just, you notice how my queen and both of my rooks are pointing on his half of the board? That's what I'm trying to do. And he's also trying to do the exact same thing. So rook to d6 was played. Didn't see that though. But if I sack my rook, he takes. Okay, unless I want to lose. All right, queen to h3 was my initial plan. Queen to h3 is either winning or losing. But let's do it. Queen to h3, queen to b2, and then just pull my bishop back to c6. I'm threatening the unprotected bishop. Both of his bishops are unprotected because the h pawn is pinned. So queen to h3 could appear to be a fork. Now, if he plays queen to b2, then b7 is going to be under attack. And, I don't want any rook to d8. But it shouldn't work though. Queen b2, I sack. I'm immediately threatening mate. So if he sack with check and I take, there's no more checks. Taking on b7 is not a check. So I could win the game there. Like my knight on d8 is doing a great defensive role. Bishop back to f3 was played, and now we're just thinking of just taking the free bishop. Once I take the free bishop, though, I'm not creating an immediate threat. Like it's free, and I have nothing else, and I want to at least let him think. So let's just take it and then think about it after. Okay, rook to a3 was played. So if I take, why am I calculating nonsense? Just play though. Wait. We got him. You see, this is why you should always think about your forcing moves. I almost missed rook to g1. The whole idea is after queen takes, the queen no longer guards the rook. No, that's not the idea. The whole idea is after rook to g1 check, queen takes g1, queen takes f3 is check. The queen has to block, and that's gonna be mate. You see how reactive I was? I was like, okay, just play where to put the queen. But that's not how you think about chess. Always consider your forcing moves. And he took, now we take on f3 with check because he thought I was trying to go for all of that. He blocks with the queen, and that's just a checkmate. So for the next player is 2389. D4 was played. Let's go knight f6. And he says he watches me on YouTube. So that's nice. Now we're playing the Nimza Indian variation of and I think my opponent is going to be playing the Catalan opening. And the Catalan opening is actually very, very strong. So let's go d5. I'm going to try to play against the Catalan how I usually do it. Now, knight f3, we go bishop to e7. and then I castle my king. Now, this is how I play against the Catalan. I do not know too much theory in this line. Usually, I'm worse in these type of positions, but taking on c4 is not necessarily a free pawn because the queen is going to go to c2, and if I play b5, the bishop, points towards my rook, which means knight g5 is winning. But the whole idea is to play the move bishop to d7 followed by bishop to c6. Now, if you're watching this and you want to know how to play against the Catalan, everything that I'm doing is currently correct and theoretical. After queen takes c4, bishop to c6 puts the bishop on the same diagonal as his bishop. Now, one thing to keep in mind is the light squared bishop in the Catalan is usually a bad bishop. So our goal is usually to just get rid of that bishop as quickly as possible. Now, knight c3 was played. There's no e4 just yet. So I'm just thinking about how I'm going to be developing the rest of my pieces. Actually, I'm going to go with the idea where we take on f3 and play pawn to c6. No, I'm not sure when is the right time to take on f3. That's the thing. So like we're 8 moves in. I gave all you guys the correct move. After knight c3, I'm not sure. So do your research after knight c3. But my idea is after the bishop takes, I'm gonna play pawn c6. Now you guys should understand that whenever a bishop is pointing towards a pawn chain, it's not as dangerous. So he plays e4, e5 will always go knight e5, but pawn d5 is actually a dangerous move here. I need to think about how I'm planning on finishing my development though. D5 I should not be too scared of. I'm actually gonna play knight nah, knight d7 makes more sense. I'm just trying to develop here. I can always play knight b6 to hit the queen. The downside of my position here is the fact that the opponent has the bishop here. And I can't tell you guys what I have in return for the bishop here. I'm just being honest. Like, what do I have in return? You could say I have a very solid position, but it's not like White's position is overexerted. Usually, when you have positions like these in the Caracan or the Scandinavian, White already like overexerted their pawn to h5. So this is why Magnus liked the Catalan because you get the bishop here and then you just try to squeeze a slight advantage. But this guy's not Magnus, so let's see. So rook to d1 was played. He's putting his rook on the same line as my queen. Queen to c7 I'm thinking of. But then knight b5. Yeah, knight b5, I just move the queen and I'm fine. Bishop to f4 would be the critical move. Or d5. If d5, I have knight here. So bishop to f4, pawn to e5 hits the bishop. If takes, I take, and then the queen is under attack. And if he takes, I take, and I'm safe. If he moves the queen, I take with check. And then after the queen takes, I just need to move my queen and I'm fine. So let's go with queen to c7. I'm just thinking of different ways in which I could neutralize this game. Well, not neutralize, equalize this game. So bishop to f4. Queen c7 is a risky move, by the way. This is just me being exact. Sometimes you just have to be exact. Like I'm putting my queen on the same line as his queen, which is unprotected. But I just know that knight b5 or d5 doesn't work. I know that he's able to go bishop f4 and gain a tempo on my queen, but I just know that I can meet that with e5. So sometimes that's a good way to break guidelines. Like that you shouldn't put your knight on the edge of the board, but the person who made that rule does not have your position, and your position in front of you is telling you that the knight belongs on the edge of the board. So that's how you have to think about it. But if you're someone who just doesn't understand why you don't put the knight on the edge of the board and those things, then if you do it, then it's just bad. And I'm not just talking about the knight on the edge of the board, just principles in general. So a4 was played, very nice move. Usually White wants to play a4 and then prevent knight b6. So I'm just going to play a5 to prevent all of that. Plus, the b4 square is a bit softer. I have a bit more control over the b4 square. I can play knight b6 whenever I want. Not sure yet, but my next move or my next 2 moves should be rook d8, rook c8. And then I could say all my pieces are doing something. But this is him trying to push for an advantage. So let's see how my fellow friend, USCF Matt, pushes for an advantage. And he's going to be watching this video because he just left a comment, said that he watches my video. So let me see how you push for an advantage, bro. Let's see. If he plays bishop e3, rook c1, then maybe he knows something about chess. Maybe. Bishop f4. I kind of want him to play bishop f4 unless I'm missing something. Bishop back to g2. I don't know why. Or maybe he plays that because the bishop would be now on g2. So if bishop f4, e5 takes, he just needs to move the queen. With all of that being said, I'm gonna play rook to d8. Because if that happens and he has to move the queen, there's no way to attack my knight. And I'm gonna be able to play bishop d6 and break the pin. So let's. Oh, maybe he wants to play f4 backside. If I play e5, he plays d5. No, e5 takes e5 d5 knight b6 hits the queen. Queen goes somewhere. Let's say b3. Grab the pawn. He grabs back. Then my b5 score is just weak. e5 d5. I'm gonna do it anyways. That's I don't know. I don't know. Gonna do it anyways. If he plays d5, probably I'm just not gonna take. That's the thing. I can't afford to weaken my b5 score. That's the thing. The good thing is his bishop on g2 is now a decent bishop. I didn't say it's a bad bishop. It downgraded from being a bishop to being a decent bishop. So maybe I'm already countering the fact that he has the bishop here. You heard that, Matt? All right. D5, I was expecting that. And now my knight also gets access to the c5 square. I mean, bishop to e3 immediately hits the knight, though. So that would be embarrassing. Maybe, well, queen b6, d6. If I play bishop d6, there's never going to be any knight b5. If he takes, I takes. And any queen that goes here, I go here. All right, let's do this. Maybe this. Eventually, knight c5, queen b6. Um, if he calculates something and make f4 work anytime, then he's just a good chess player. But let's see, Matt. Let's see. Matt. Rook to d8, rook to c8. That's the plan. Just get the pieces in the game. I'm aware that my queen is the only defender of the bishop. What else should I be aware of? I want you guys to notice how I do not allow pieces on my half of the board. And whenever a piece gets any access or there's any possibility, I have something for it. Why? Because the whole idea is to put pieces on opponent's half. Okay, Matt is getting nervous. Matt is thinking, guys. We love that. Okay, I need to think as well. Because either he's not finding how to push for his advantage, or he's just cooking something that I'm not seeing. Okay, he took the pawn. Let's quickly take back, which means my b5, my b6 pawn is a weak, isolated pawn. Let's not get that twisted. So now the guy has the bishop here, and my pawn is isolated. What do I get in return? I mean, b4 is weak. c5 and knight could go there. Rook could go on b8. Could go knight c5, knight e6, knight d4. Um, bishop e3, rook c1. Let's assume that's going to be on the chessboard. No, bishop e3, we go knight g4. Immediately hit the bishop. Bishop e3, I mean, queen d3 is kind of weird though, because I could blunder a piece like that. Knight g4, queen d3. I could blunder a piece like that. That's weird. That's why I need to play rook to d8, because I'm also trying to play knight b6, and that's a blunder. So let's quickly go rook to d8. Rook to c1 is gonna target my c6 pawn. Okay, rook to d2 I wasn't expecting, Mr. Matt. I wasn't expecting it, which means it was not a good move, Matt. Knight g4. Knight g4 hits the bishop. If he does this, I take it the queen, and if he takes, maybe bishop c5, or maybe knight f6. Maybe knight f6. Let's do it. Let's do it. I just need to not blunder anything now, man. Okay, I'm ahead by an entire minute. Matt, what is he gonna play? Oh, fudge. There's actually bishop g5. There's no f6. My pawn is pinned. Wait, bishop g5. What if I play knight f to f6? And then meet h. Oh my god, Matt. Knight f6, pawn h3, pawn h6. Bishop back. Holy sh. Pawn g5. Takes, takes, takes. Okay. If I move the rook, I'm going to lose the game. It's just weird. If I move the rook, I'm going to lose my bishop. So let's just go knight f6. And if I pull the knight back to f6, it's... Why didn't I play that? And then play knight b6. All right. h3, h6. Pawn h3, pawn h6. If he takes, I takes, and I'm not losing. Pawn h3, pawn h6. If he takes, I takes, and I'm not losing. Pawn h3, pawn h6. Bishop h4. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But after bishop h4, my knight is trapped. So I could either sack on f2 or play immediate g5 and then take on g5 and then take on g4. I'm not trying to be done by a pawn. Mat. Okay. Am I losing? Knight is unprotected. King is exposed. Rook is unprotected. Pawn is unprotected. Immediately hit the unprotected knight. Pawn h5. Pawn h5 if f3 the queen is not as active. Pawn h5 if bishop h3. I play maybe king h8 takes. There's no queen takes. There's rook g8. Knight back to f6 is passive, bro. That's passive. Let's play h5. Knight back to f6 is passive. I'm either winning or I'm losing or something. H4 is unprotected. Queen to e7 is an idea to hit the pawn. Bishop f3, queen h7, takes, check, and I'm losing. So bishop f3 or h3, I have to play king to h8 first. I think he should just takes and move his king. Bishop f3. God damn. This guy. King h8 takes. Oh, God damn. Let's just do it. No. If he takes, immediate rook g8, f3 takes. Who is attacking who? Queen h3, hit him with queen e7. Unprotected pawn. If he takes, I take on h4 and I'm going to say check, mat. And then if he moves the king, let's just play it. Let's just play the move, bro. Just play the move. Take with check. Once he moves the king, I'm thinking of playing rook to g8, pawn to f3. Oh, holy sh. If I take, I lose the queen. And if I takes, okay, rook to g8, pawn to f3. How did I not see that, man? Okay, man. Yeah, he's gonna win that pawn. No, we're in an endgame. So check, I play king. I was planning on playing king up. I don't know why he checked the king. Matt doesn't understand endgames. Okay. So he hits the pawn to keep the king active. Rook takes, then pin the thingum. The knight. If takes and it's just a drawn endgame. But Matt doesn't have any time on the clock. You're not going to win this, Matt. So rook to c2. My c6 pawn is weak. We already established that, Matt. I'm wondering if I need to trade, but that rook is not really doing much. Where is he going to put his knight? Maybe knight back to e2. All right, let's go. Let's just put the rook on the open file. He's going to target c6. I'm going to play rook b6. So knight e2, rook b6, knight g3. Is he gonna find it though? That's the thing. I'm ahead by an entire minute, Matt. Even if you win two of my rooks, you're gonna get flagged, bro. I'm sorry. So he's trying to check me here. Maybe I check him, but that's kind of weird. Okay, maybe I just need to make a move. Maybe that's what I need to do. Rook to g6, knight to e2, maybe king e7, and guard pawn that way. There's no rook h6 check now. Okay, there's a check here that looks attractive. Let's play this first. No, that doesn't make any sense, bro. Okay, now d4, b7 is under attack. Knight e2 is still a move, because then if I take... Okay, let's not trade. I need that rook to guard c6, actually. For example, knight back to e2, king to e7. King e7, takes. If I takes, there's a check. Maybe pawn c5, knight takes. Let's go king back. Guard the pawn this way. If he takes, I takes. Now, e4, he's hitting this pawn. Let's counter attack, guard the pawn, hit his pawn. He attacks it again, c5, guard it again. That pawn is now hanging and unprotected. That pawn is weak. Let's grab the weak pawn. I'm ahead by a pawn. Okay, king activity is crucialmente. Okay, let's play here. King d5, c4, GG. King d5, c4, GG's. Pawn b3. Check. Check. Okay, my pawn is hanging. I need to play faster. If a rook is on b3, that's mate, by the way. What is this? How can I checkmate this guy? That's mate, no? Mate boy, checkmate. Okay, we're on fire, but this guy's 25, 23, and he's playing the Karakan defense. Okay, I'm gonna finish it off with a bang. I'm going to end this with a bang. This is all theoretical stuff, by the way, which is why I'm not saying anything, because maybe you watch one of my Karakan videos and you see this. But I mean, taking with the pawn is actually something. Oh my lord, Junken McGregor also messaged me in the chat. Says, "Sir, I'm your big fan. So I'm gonna beat you, bro." What's his name? What's your name? So bishop to d6, bishop to d3, queen c. This is all theoretical stuff, guys. So once, if he castles, we're gonna go queen c2 and apply more pressure to h7. So he castles queen c2, all theory. Rook e8 check, knight e2 blocks the check. Um, so yeah, we're playing against Farhan. Just sent me his username in the chat. I'm on fire. We're going to be beating everyone today. Pawn to h6 is not the theoretical move. Usually the pawn goes to h4 and then h5. So Farhan doesn't know his theory, but let's go knight e2. It's either he doesn't know his theory or he knows that I know the theory and he's playing something that is not as theoretical, or it's just another line. But that's not the line that I know for. And if I don't know it, it's not good. Sorry, bro. So rook e8. I need to castle. Let's just get the king out of the center of the board. Just regular stuff. Bishop e3 next. And it's just going to be a regular game, to be honest. Nobody has any huge advantage except I have a pawn majority. So maybe small, but let's play some chess, bro. Okay, knight d7. This is theoretical stuff. I think he wants to transfer the knight to f8 and then bishop e6, queen d7. So let's go bishop to e3, rook to d1, pawn to c4, knight c3, knight f8. Okay, notice 11 moves in, nothing happening. We're just bringing our pieces in the game. Rook to d1, putting my rook on the same line as the queen. Once he plays queen c7 and target h2, then I'm going to play h3. Bishop to e6, that's correct. And I mean, knight f4 is also a move. Knight f4 is a move. Pawn c4 is a move. Um, if I want to just get rid of the bishop, just outright get rid of the bishop here, I could try to do that. And if he give up his dark squared bishop, that just cannot be good. So I prefer the c4 knight c3 line, but let's just try this. Let's just see how good Farhan is. Is he going to move the bishop again? We're not expecting him to move the bishop again. So we're about to just capture the bishop, play some chess. Okay, he took, let's take back. And now there's two advantages. The bishop here and the pawn majority. Sorry, Farhan, bro. Queen to a5, that makes some sense. I mean, okay, fine. You're attacking the pawn, fine. Big deal. Pawn to b3, guard the pawn, and then what? Let's just guard the pawn. Can't be playing too hasty against these 2500s. So he plays pawn to b5. I think he wants to prevent pawn to c4. But then he's weakening his c6 pawn, bro. Come on. Or he wants to put his bishop on the d5 square. And if I play bishop e4, he goes bishop d5, takes, and then c3 is gonna be weak. So maybe I need to play c4. No, just what am I doing? If the bishop goes to d5, that's when I play c4. So let's just get more pieces in the game. Let's just get all the pieces in the game. I have the bishop here, so I'm trying to think long term in order to win this. I'm just gonna bring him in the end game, use the pawn majority and the bishop here, and just beat him. Queen back to b6. Okay, I could try to play c4 no. C4 no looks like a move. Why not? I mean, c4 no opens the b file. Let's do it. By the way, if the queen takes on d4, bishop h7 wins the queen. So I'm aware of that. I also like the idea of d5, but I'm not gonna sacrifice a pawn if I don't see what I'm getting for it. So let's see. Okay, he took. Let's quickly take back. C6 is weak. Bishop g4 was played, hitting the rook. That's such a nice move. That is such a nice move. Because if pawn f3, no, he takes with check. And if I do any in between move, he's just gonna take. So I have to move the rook. Or yeah, there's also bishop e2. Well, there's rook to b1. No, there's no rook b1. So bishop e2, and if he takes, I takes, and if he takes, I takes. All right, let's try that. I didn't see that move, bro. Good move. Good move. So my rook guards the d4 pawn, luckily. If he takes, I takes. All right. I had more time than him in the beginning, and all of a sudden, his time is getting higher than mine. So I have to pay attention to that. I no longer have the bishop here, but I have a bishop versus a knight. I have a pawn majority in the center of the board. And I have 17 more seconds than Farhan. Okay, knight e6, bishop e3. Knight g6, bishop e3. If takes, takes. Takes, I takes. If takes, I takes. Unprotected. This is under attack twice. Has to be bishop e3. D5 is now a threat, so he has to move the queen. I'm probably gonna play. Yo, yo. What do we do with pass pawns? What do we do? You see what? You see the move that he just played, Queen A6, because he knows that I'm trying to roll the pawn. And if push takes takes, I'm gonna lose the queen. So Queen G4 is doesn't make sense. I want to make D5 work. I need to find some place for my queen, which would keep C4 guarded. Maybe Queen D3, D5. Queen E2 doesn't work. Queen C2, there's Rook C8. So, oh, if Queen D3 takes, push takes, takes. All right, this is weird. I'm gonna do something weird because I'm not sure what to do here. Queen C2 seems like the most normal. All right, let's try Queen C2. If he plays Rook C8, then I'm just not gonna play D5. The Rook is not active on C8. That's how I'm gonna think about it. I also need to push one of these pawns because there are no open lines and open diagonals leading towards the back rank. So Rook D8, pawn D5, takes, takes. Knight F8. Do I rush? Do I rush? What if I wait? Let's H. Let's play H3. Let's just wait one move, then play it after. Because after takes takes, I'm seeing Rook C8 being a move, which is not too bad. I just need to not blunder a pawn or anything. I'm not losing to Farhan. That's not possible, bro. Okay, hopefully you guys know the little idea that we talk about. When a bishop is 2 squares in front of a knight, the knight is dominated. Queen A5. Guy doesn't want me to push the pawn. Push takes takes, rook takes. Um, maybe Queen B3 to allow D5. Yeah, let's try that. So we're trying to make D5 work. He's trying not to make D5 work. It's the only, well, apart from the fact that I have a bishop and he has a knight, it's the only other thing that I have that you could call an advantage. And he's also targeting my D pawn anyway, so it's not like I could like move the pieces to other squares. I'm gonna lose the pawn. So the plan has to be D5. One thing I'm noticing is if D5 allows okay, he wants to play F4. So D5 F4 takes, check. Nah, can't be good. D5 takes, knight C5 hits the queen. Let's just do it anyways. We have to attack. There's also rook takes, which is very interesting. Because what if I'm able to get into an endgame with a pass pawn? I don't think he's expecting rook takes. Queen check, king up. I don't think he's expecting rook takes. If I lose this game, probably should have played pawn takes. Oh, there's an immediate check. I thought he had to trade first. Backside. There's an immediate check. It's not that. I don't know, bro. I didn't see that one. God. So this is an example of the drawback mistake, by the way, guys. All right, but QC7 was played. It's a pawn, bro. Swear. Okay, here, rook here, C5. Guys, my pieces are not coordinated with each other, but that's a pawn. At the end of the day, a pawn is just a pawn. Knight D4 takes. Then he's hitting this pawn. Yo, let's just take the pawn, man. Let's take the pawn. Now we're about to see what he saw. Knight D4 we have to take because that's a fork. It's actually the line that I'm scared of because my background feels weak because my rook is not around there. And the queen covers the H2 square. I mean, all of that is weird. I want him to at least think he's losing. The guy has a very aggressive and active position. All of a sudden, I don't like this knight anymore. The good thing is, if the knight moves forward, I'm going to take without thinking. Okay, there's no rook checks just yet. Rook to d5, I like. Rook to d5, rook to d5. He's just going to take the pawn. Huh? I don't even have a check. Rook d5, he takes the pawn, and I'm losing. Maybe pawn c5. No. Side, queen e3, that's mate. Pawn c5, queen d7. Jack king up. No. All right, I'm gonna have to sacrifice the pawn. Rook d5, but the thing is, there's also rook takes. Oh, I spent too much time on that move. I spent too much time on that move. Too much time. Queen takes. Oh, wait, what? Why did he get into the end game? See, maybe he thought he was losing, which is crazy. Let me get my king active now. I'm gonna try to win this. This is drawn, by the way. I'm gonna try to win this for educational purposes only. It's drawn though. That's just drawn. Okay, g5 is not bad. I have an idea. I'm gonna try to get my rook on f5 and the pawn on a5. Okay, so rook f5, pawn. Doesn't make any sense though. Why am I doing all of that to make his rook active? Okay, let's just move. Worst case scenario, I just go back. It doesn't make any sense. Check, king up. And I have to evade all his checks unless I'm gonna block the check and try to win that way. But I'm not that strong. Okay, so h5 I'm not able to take. Let's play this. I'm at risk of losing. That was such a bad plan. He just needs to check. I don't mind a draw, bro, to be honest. I don't mind. Let me just. Okay, he took. Oh my god, I have to take. Wait. King takes, rook takes, and then I attack the rook. Rook here, I attack the rook. Let's play king takes. King takes. Now I'm attacking the g5 pawn. If he takes, I'm gonna play here, hit the rook, and then I'm gonna take here next. Um okay, let's take. And I'm just gonna roll. I'm gonna just roll the pawn. Oh, but then there's king up. There's king up. Yeah, once he puts the king there, he's safe. I think he's actually able to win this now. What am I doing? How is his position so active? What? Let's push. So now there's no king takes, luckily. Because if he takes, I check and I queen, which is probably winning, to be honest. The pawns are a bit too far. So he pushed. Okay, I'm going to go here, hit the pawn. If he takes the pawn, I take his pawn with check. And if he takes my pawn, I takes and it's drawn. Oh, no. There's king f4. Oh, yeah, he's gonna play king f4. All of a sudden, he's playing for the win. All right, I have to keep the rook. Ah, he wants to flag me now. God, got flagged, man. Whoa, happens. Draw.